Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today we're going to go over and do a quick review of the Callisto Protocol for those of you who may want to play. I'm also going to try and keep things spoilerish free, just simply because, well, maybe you want to play the game without spoilers. Now, if you do want spoilers, I have a video for that already up. It is the ending explained video, and it goes over the entire story, talks about it from beginning to end, and if you want spoilers, there they are. But no spoilers in this video. We're going to start out my review by talking about the fact that for some reason a lot of people don't seem to like this game. I've been seeing a lot of negative reviews on this game, and I don't really quite understand it because I had a blast playing the game. Overall, like, my experience was way better than Dead Space 3, which was a steaming pile of garbage. If you guys ever played Dead Space 3, Dead Space 3 was like completely full of bugs, crashed all the time, save files were corrupting. There was one point where literally the my save file corrupted, and I had to start all the way over from scratch with Dead Space 3, and it was just a nasty, just horrible experience all the way around. And in terms, like, if you were going to compare the two, like Dead Space 3 versus this game, Callisto Protocol is a freaking shining diamond compared to the turd that was Dead Space 3. And in that regard, let's talk about the issues that I had myself. And I feel like I need to preface this by saying that I am on PC, so I played primarily on the personal computer, and my system is a 3800X processor. I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I also have a 3090 RTX graphics card. However, this is also prefaced by the fact that I was streaming the entire thing, which consumes a huge amount of resources on its own. So I had a lot of overhead on the computer at the same time as I was playing the game. And it's been my experience that this usually causes the game to have more problems, not less. When I talk about my issues with the game, come at it from that perspective. So as far as graphical problems goes, I had a little bit of stuttering during what I consider to be theatrical moments, and it seemed like they never occurred during the actual game or during combat. It was actually quite strange because, like, when I was fighting a monster, like you see on the screen right now, I never really had any stuttering issues. But if I came across like a big window that showed me like the habitat or something, or like there was some sort of specific theatrical event that was going to occur, that was primarily when I had the stuttering issues, and they were few and far between, to be honest. I did have one like literally right off the gate, but then like I would play for several hours before I would have another one. The game never crashed on me, which was absolutely great. The game never had any kind of like issues with saves that I can like say like with Dead Space 3 where I had to restart all the way from the beginning. And overall, my experience with the game was amazing. And I know mileage may vary, obviously. So with every person, there's going to be different results. You may have worse results than me, but it was my experience that the game was a very stable, well-made game with very few glitches comparatively to a lot of other titles that I've played in the past that have crashed on a regular basis, had lag spikes all of the time, and in the case of Dead Space 3, literally just corrupts your entire save file to the point where you have to restart the entire game. So in terms of like stability and performance, I'm gonna give Callisto Protocol a 9 out of 10. The combat is also another very interesting topic that I feel like we can talk about. The combat was very straightforward, and it did take a little while to get used to. And as you can see, I'm fighting monsters all the time. And you even go in and, yes, stomp them to make sure that they die. But basically, what you're doing for the most part is you're dodging their melee attacks. And these monsters are particularly hard to kill. In the beginning of the game, they're not like ridiculously hard to kill, but toward the end of the game, you come across a new feature, and I'm trying not to give spoilers here, that makes the monsters harder. And this new feature that comes into play definitely does create what I would literally just refer to them as bullet sponges, because if you're not careful, you can waste all your ammunition on just a few monsters. And ammunition is definitely something that is scarce within the game world. As you go along, you definitely have to conserve your ammunition for those key moments where you need it the most. And so I had a lot of fun with the combat. Just in general, it was not a detractor from the game, which in some games combat can be a detraction. But this particular game had a combat system which was fun and rewarding without being overly complicated. If you guys played Elden Ring, you may know what I'm talking about. But in Elden Ring, when you dodged an enemy, there was every possibility that your dodge would not actually work. There were issues with the dodges not going off at the correct times. There were issues with the dodges just in general, just failing. And then in this game, I almost never had that happen. Like 99% of the time, if I dodged, it worked. And there were a few situations where if I wasn't looking at the monster when I dodged, like there could be some issues. But for the most part, the dodges were very responsive, and I enjoyed that because it felt like if I died, it was my fault because I made a mistake. And I think that's very important for a lot of games. Is that if you die in a game, you want it to feel like it's your fault, not like it's something that you was out of your control. And that's why, like in Elden Ring, for instance, when the dodge would not activate, despite the fact that you would hit the button, you would get frustrated because hey, like I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to do. This death wasn't my fault. Whereas in this game, I don't think I ever really felt like that. I never really felt like the death wasn't my fault, and so I had a lot more fun with the combat. Then it was just like, oh well, I done effed up. The sound quality was absolutely amazing. I would highly recommend that you play this game with headphones if you're going to do a playthrough because the audio quality was just absolutely great. They had the whole surround sound kind of effect going on, where you'd hear like footsteps behind you, and you would turn around, and it would freak you the hell out. I mean, at its core, this is a horror game, so having that horror game esque kind of audio that allows you to hear things behind you and be scared because yes, there's a freaking zombie monster coming to eat your freaking brains, and if you're not careful, he's gonna get them. And every monster feels like a challenge in this game because if you make a mistake, they can very well kill you. And I absolutely adored it. Graphically, I really enjoyed the graphics of this game. It's definitely a step forward in graphics, I think, on most games, and I'm pretty sure this is because it's the Unreal 5 engine. And it's not necessarily like Callisto Protocol showing off that it's the most amazing thing in graphics. I feel like it's just the Unreal 5 engine showing off how good the graphics are in Unreal 5 now. And I mean, I really didn't have much issues with the graphics themselves either. Like, it was pretty gory. Like, there were certain points where I kind of had to look away because some of the gore moments were a little crazy. And speaking of gore moments, let's talk about that for a second because when you die, when monsters die, when environmental variables kill you, when environmental variables kill monsters, like there are all sorts of crazy ways to watch your character die. And I mean, everything from getting your arm pulled off, your head ripped off. I mean, just tons and tons of various things that are going to like just yeah, like just you just look at it, you're just like, whoa, is that my tongue? Uh, whew. Did he just rip my arm off and beat me with it? Like, alrighty then. Uh, you're gonna have a little bit of fun, just like every time you die. Like, there's gonna be like a new death animation, and you're just gonna be like, whoa, yeah, okay, alrighty then. That was, whew, yeah, that was not fun. Mm-mm. And even when it comes to the monsters, there's a lot of fun death animations for the monsters too when you kill them, depending on if you kill them with a gun or your melee weapon. And speaking of the melee weapon, very very fun, very very rewarding melee combat. It is a little bit hard, a little bit difficult to kill monsters with the melee weapon, but if you are diligent with the dodging, if you're diligent with the keeping yourself alive, it works out pretty nicely. And resource management was very fun. I really enjoyed the whole, resource management process, like finding the contraband, and the contraband was used to sell for equipment because the weapon upgrade system was in the whole resource management thing. So basically, you're in a prison and there are items that are considered contraband, and to promote the contraband to be sold or to be basically removed from the ecosystem of the prison, the guards are essentially paid money for the contraband. So they take this contraband to the 3D printing station essentially, and they sell it for money. And the more valuable the contraband, the more money you get, and so forth and so on. So it worked out really nicely in the resource management system, which with resources you've got to govern your credits, which is of course your money. You also have to govern your ammunition, which is very finite. A lot of the times I would find myself running out of ammunition and utilizing different weapons than I did have ammunition for. And a lot of the times I would find myself just simply using the melee weapon because it was a way for me to save on ammunition. There is also another kind of resource management that was added into the game that is kind of separate from the credits and the ammunition, and that is the force glove. There's really no other way to talk about it. It's literally a glove that you put on your hand, and it has the ability to like control things just like a freaking Jedi would, like lifting things up through the air and throwing them. And with this, you could like pick up exploding devices and throw them at the monsters. You could pick up the monsters themselves and throw them at spikes and various environmental variables, which definitely comes in handy to preserve your ammunition for those moments when you really need it. Just a very, very fun combat resource management in general. And there was even a little bit of a stealth mechanic in there too for some of the monsters that apparently had no eyesight. So later on in the game, this isn't really a spoiler so much, is that you will come across some monsters that can't see, and so they end up adding in a bunch of stealth mechanics. And while I don't normally like stealth mechanics in video games, the stealth mechanics didn't feel overly forced in this one. And it was okay. They weren't like so ridiculously like drawn out like some of the other games like to do it that you felt just kind of annoyed. The stealth mechanics were really only for one part where the blinded monsters are, and then after the blinded monsters you don't really use the stealth mechanics all that much anymore. My issue with the story. So I liked the story. So don't get me wrong when I say this. I did enjoy the story. However, the story was slow. And I got to make sure that I don't give any spoilers here with the story. But in the beginning, it doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, I feel like they didn't quite explain properly what was going on at the beginning. And, like, it just really didn't flow right. And by the time you ended up finding out what the hell was going on in the story, I felt like it was way too late to be telling like the whole story like within the last couple chapters of the game. Like you literally start finding out what's going on within the last couple chapters of the game. And speaking of finding out what's going on, throughout the game you will encounter players or like not players, well NPCs that have little like audio entries, like just telling you what's going on. And this struck me very much as like almost like System Shock. I don't know if you guys ever played System Shock 2, but in System Shock 2, you would find these audio files, and you would pick them up, and they would automatically play while you were doing the game, so that you could, like keep playing as you listen to the audio logs. Well, in this game, you find audio logs, but you have to stop what you're doing. You have to go into your inventory. You have to find the audio log. You have to play it manually, and you have to keep the game. You have to keep the audio log up until it finishes. You can't just play it and then close it and then listen to it as you're playing the game. And this was a big detractor for me because I just really didn't understand why I couldn't just do it just like I did in System Shock 2, which is pick up the audio log and it plays for me in my headset. But instead, I was forced to specifically go in, find the audio log, which was often not highlighted, by the way. And many times, if I didn't pay attention to the name of the audio log that popped up on the screen, I would not be able to find it because the audio logs, there would be like freaking like 50 or 60 audio logs in there. And I didn't know exactly which one I picked up because it just didn't make any sense. One change that I would make right off the bat is that allow us to toggle a little thing on or something, or even just patch it in so that we can just have the audio logs play. If I pick up an audio log, just automatically play it. Don't like make me go into the menu and pick it up. Another issue that I had was with the weapon upgrade system and the save checkpoints. So a couple times throughout the game, I would upgrade my weapons at the upgrade station, and then I would end up dying. I would find myself back at the area where I upgraded my weapons, but my weapons wouldn't be upgraded. And I even tried to upgrade my weapons and then manually save the game. Then I died again, reloaded my manual save, only to find that my weapons were again not upgraded, which was very, very strange. And it was a bit of an annoyance in several areas where the monsters were pretty challenging, and I did die repeatedly. In fact, on one zone there was this big fog cloud, and I couldn't see any of the monsters. Or there was a spitter on the other side, and he was demolishing me while I was trying to fight several melee monsters at the same time. Took me quite a few tries to overcome that zone, and having to upgrade my weapons every single time I attempted that zone was painful. But overall, with the save system, I really didn't have to worry about manually saving that often because the checkpoints were pretty well done. I really only had that issue with the upgrade stations, and it wasn't like everywhere. It was just in a few of the upgrade stations where that issue occurred. And I think that's pretty much it. Last thing I think I can talk about is the length of the game. I'm not sure if I already talked about that or not, but it was a bit short at 12 hours. I feel like it could have been a little bit longer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really understand why people don't like the game. I'm going to be honest with you. I really feel like it is a very good game. Maybe there was just too much hype around the game and people were, ballooning it up into something that it wasn't. But overall, I'm gonna hold my opinion that that this was a very good game, and I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10 is not bad at all. In this day and age, you'll find a lot of games that are a hell of a lot lower than 8.5 out of 10. I would give it a 9 if it weren't for the stuttering issues that were not really that common, and the issues with the save checkpoint, as well as the problems with the voice logs, the audio logs not playing automatically. I didn't. All of those kind of detracted from the game for me. If the audio logs had played automatically, and I didn't have those stuttering issues, I'd give it a 9, no problem. Maybe a 9.5 if I didn't have to deal with the save checkpoint problems on the upgrade station. But the story also detracted from it a little bit because they just didn't. It was really slow to get into the story, and then by the time they actually did tell me what was going on, it was a little bit late to be feeding me information. I really felt like they needed to kind of like give me more of a picture, paint me more of a picture sooner than what they did. They held me in the dark, I think, for way too long, and it was not the greatest. Anyway, as always, let me know what you guys think about this game. And I am interested in hearing your individual experiences as well. Like, what did you guys have performance-wise? And also include your specs too, because if you had some issues with performance, I'd also like to know what your specifications are for your computer to know if maybe it was more of a a hardware issue rather than just simply the game itself. And as always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.